Is it true men and women can't just be friends?
It will not work.
Is it true dating apps has made modern dating harder?
And it makes it harder for most men.
Is it true most people are in love with the idea of someone, not the actual person?
And it's very easy, I think, for people to paint character traits onto other people that don't actually exist.
Is it true men and women can't just be friends?
No. So I have a very passionate opinion on the subject matter. I think there's a few things that have to lay the groundwork first in order for truly platonic relationships to exist fruitfully. So one of my closest friends, her name is Julia. We're so close, I was on the bride's side of the wedding. Like, I was the homie of honor. And the things that have made our friendship so awesome is there's never been like a mutual attraction to each other. Like, it's never been something that's discussed, never been something that's either of us have wanted. So like, that's already taken care of. If one person, even one of the two, finds the other like physically irresistible, or can see even just like a moderate potential of romance, it will not work. But if two people are totally cool with literally just enjoying the presence of each other's company, being there for each other when people need, I think it's so healthy for men to have platonic female friendships that aren't based on that attraction. You get different perspectives on your relationships. You get an insight into human psychology that you just can't get otherwise. And I think it's really valuable, but you need to not be attracted to each other romantically in order for it to be successful.
That's the caveat right there, that they're not attracted to each other. So at age 27, I say men and women can be friends, but I didn't always hold this opinion. When I was younger, when I was maybe 22, 23, 24, I'm like, why do I want a female friendship? That was just small thinking. I think having female friendships can open up a whole new world. The feminine energy can be so healing, so nurturing. They can give insight and just valuable perspectives on life. I think you need to just kind of channel your energy so that you don't look at everybody like a piece of meat, because life is better when you're not looking at people as a piece of meat. So men and women as friends platonically is so underrated in life. But also, the caveat there too is it shouldn't come from a place of scarcity, a place of like lack, where you resort to the only type of interactions are friendships. But I would leave it that, yes, men and women can be friends. Is it true dating apps has made modern dating harder?
In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. So if you look at basically every study on dating apps, there are more men on dating apps than there are women. So there's already a supply and demand issue going on. And then what happens there is it's a small fraction of men that get the vast majority of matches. And I don't really blame women for that. I think that's more of a man's problem. It's like, well, why are those few men cracking the code on dating apps? Well, it's probably because they're in good shape. It's probably because they have good, clear photos of themselves. You can probably tell that they're put together, that they're hygienic, and that they have these other like sub traits from their photos that look good. And I feel like 90% of men don't have that. So I think it does tip the scales, and it makes it harder for most men. But I also feel like dating apps could make your life so much easier, your dating life so much easier, if you're just moderately intentional. Do you have decent photos? Do you have a bio that is not cringy? Do you ever get feedback from the women in your life about what is on there? I think that will make it a lot easier for you. But I think the one problem with dating apps is the over-reliance on them, where kind of that introduction and that courtship has kind of gone from society, where there's not as many dudes going up to women and just introducing themselves. There's a whole bunch of reasons for that, but I think it's a bit of a nuanced question, yes and no.
I'm going to take the stance, dating apps has made modern dating harder, and the reason being, there's something called the paradox of choice, where it says the more choice you have, the less action you will take. The less choice, the more action. So we have an abundance of choice. Have you ever been on Netflix and you're scrolling through and there's all these movies and you're like, wow, all these great movies, but I don't know which one to to choose. Well, it's a similar effect when it comes to dating. So I think because we have an abundance of choice, we have paralysis by overanalysis, and we don't want to settle down with one person. Is it true most people are in love with the idea of someone, not the actual person?
Absolutely. I think, and I shouldn't say most love is like this, but I think every person or most people experience that at some time in their life, where they look at this person and they start envisioning, what would my life be like with them? What would the dates be like with them? What would it be like if I like fell asleep and he or she was in my arms late at night? Like, those aren't real. Those aren't things that have happened in that introductory stage. And it's very easy, I think, for people to paint character traits onto other people that don't actually exist. I've been guilty of this in the past. I know you have from some of our conversations. And I think that's just like a normal part of learning love. I think love is actually a bit of a skill that needs to be acquired over time. It does take a lot of work. And to me, beautiful love is difficult, you know, and it's full of difficult conversations, but it's like, even though this is difficult, it's so hard and I'm choosing to do it with you. That's beautiful and that's real. But the idea of somebody, I think, is just like a feature of being human and being young, and I think a lot of us fall for that at some point.
Well said. I do agree that most people fall in love with the idea of someone, and I think it goes back to just these deep emotional wounds, where we carry these deep emotional wounds and someone is presented and we romanticize the storyline, the idea that this person is here so that they will heal me, they will bandage up my emotional wounds, and then I can accept myself, I can love myself. But it's really just kind of like a figment of your imagination of what you would like to see and what is real. Is it true most people just want attention, not actual love?
Would I say most people... Is it true that most people actually want attention, not actual love? Yes. Yes. And it goes back to what I said in the previous answer. I think real love is very hard. It is a lot of work. It is difficult. It is looking at somebody and you have to confront their, I'm not going to say flaws, but their quirks and their unique idiosyncrasies head on. I think everybody goes to sleep when they're single at some point wishing that they were next to somebody else at some point. Maybe that's not every night, but some of the nights for sure. And for some people it is every night. And I've seen through people's behavior the difference of how people behave when they are acting out of a search for love or out of a search for validation. And to me, validation is just the desire for attention. And I think most people do operate from valuing attention over love. Why? Because love sometimes isn't sexy. Love is difficult. Love is looking at your partner in the eye and saying, hey, that conversation that we had the other week, I really want you to reinforce what I'm saying because this matters to me more than maybe I think you believe it does. And holding people up to certain boundaries and building boundaries and creating them and being accountable to those things. Those are very hard to do because both parties have to confront their blind spots. They have to confront the things that they are not good at, the things that they don't communicate well. They have to confront the traumas and the beliefs and like the entire dynamics of relationships that they were grown up in, which nobody grew up in a similar household to each other. So the way that you grew up and I grew up and the women that we surround ourselves with, we did not grow up anything like each other. And so we're all gonna have different beings in different ways that we express ourselves in these romantic dynamics. The easiest thing to do is say, I want attention and I'm gonna go seek it out and get it. We can do that so easily through dating apps, through just throwing ourselves at people, through lowering our standards and accepting the attention that gives us any because it validates the insufficiencies that we feel deep inside. I think that's the operating system that most people exist on. But most people don't exist on like, how do I actually search for love? Because I don't think love is found. I think it's actually built, and that's hard. And if you look at everything in life, you don't find a good body, you build it. You don't find a good business, you build it. You don't find a good relationship, you build it. And that's hard. How many people have a good business? How many people have a great body? How many people have great love? It's few. And it comes down to the ultimate principle that it is so much easier to reach for the cookies and ruin that body. It is so much easier to not work those long hours and not have the good business. It is so much easier to seek attention and validation and not have the amazing relationship.
Wow, powerful. My stance on that is most people just want attention rather than love. And let's define love into two parts. There is giving and receiving. Most people just want to receive. We don't want to give. We don't want to compromise. So with that, it's a lot easier and it's much more convenient to just receive because it plays into validation. It makes us feel appreciated and important. But when it's our turn to reciprocate, not everybody wants to do that. They just want it to be one way in a form of receiving attention, validation, and attention. Is monogamy natural or is it a social construct?
I think it's completely natural in human dynamics. Caveat: at the highest echelons of society, emperors, kings, presidents, billionaires, no. But I think for the average person and for the 99.9% of us, that is the default and most beautiful form of the human condition. And I love wildlife. I love studying wildlife. And if you look at human beings and how we come together, we are still animals. And so why is monogamy the default setting? When a child is born, it is one of the most embarrassing forms of life that exists in the animal kingdom. And that might sound silly, but think of it. When a wildebeest is born, it pops out of its mother, it sits on the ground for maybe like an hour, and then it's like up running with the herd. It knows how to eat, it knows how to run, it can maybe maneuver itself a little bit away from predators. When a baby is born, that is not the case. It is 100% dependent on the mother to exist, for food, for love, for care, for attention. And if you look at how a child that is that innocent and needs that much attention and resources and is completely incapable of doing anything for itself, what conditions make it for the most likely scenario for that child to survive, and not just survive, but thrive? And that is a father and a mother coming together and sharing the role. Whether they're splitting the nurturing role, or one person takes the nurturing role, or they're splitting the providing role, or one person takes the providing role, it doesn't really matter. But the two parents combined have to provide the resources, making sure that shelter is over the child's head, making sure that the mother is well fed so the mother can feed the child, making sure that there is enough space for, if the mother is in that nurturing role, that the husband is creating an emotionally safe environment for her so that her nervous system can kind of take a step back and she can do the things that she needs to do, or if they're sharing that role, it doesn't matter. You need to support each other. Children do not have the same outcomes in single parent households. And that's not to say there aren't outliers, but if you look at the data, it is just one of the biggest tragedies of our society is how single parent households, the children do lead to having more difficult lives. There are higher rates of crime, there are higher rates of drug addiction later in life. And so to fragment having multiple partners, I think confuses children, and I think that does hurt their development. I think that hurts their attachment styles. And I think a dynamic of two parents that are raising a child and putting all of their efforts in is the ultimate form of, it's like the ultimate gift and cheat code and head start you could ever give to a human being. And that's why I think monogamy is the answer.
Is monogamy natural or is it a social construct? I think the answer is checkered. I don't think it's black or white. My stance on it is the body wants polygamy, but the spirit wants monogamy. And humans are designed to pair bond. They are designed to be paired up with somebody for an extended period of time. However, the caveat here is it doesn't mean forever. So in general, humans are designed and programmed to be partnered up with somebody for multiple years, decades. but it doesn't always mean that they're meant to be together forever. And also, as Jamie mentioned before, when it comes to the animal kingdom, or when it comes to emperors, kings, and they have access to a lot of people, they can tap into that animalistic brain where they want quantity over quality. But to recap, monogamy is not a social construct, because if you throw people out into the wild, if you look at nomadic tribes, you will see pair bonding. The soul wants monogamy, but it's really easy for polygamy to enter into a human instinct.